Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Ron Funches about Loot premiering on Apple TV Plus June 24th. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you.
Hi, Petey. It's Ron Funches talking back to you. I love your intro. That's great. You're like a shotgun of energy and fun. I like you.
But you always have so much going on in the comedy world, in the podcast world, in the TV and film world. If we're not excited for it, like, what's the point of all this, basically?
I 100% agree with you. There's a lot of apathy around, and there's a lot of disregarding of the victories and the good things you got going in your life. Why do that? The bad things are gonna come no matter. So you might as well appreciate and have fun with the good stuff.
And I've been telling you, I've been wanting to interview you for a while. We're finally doing it. I'm a big fan of a lot of your stuff. Golden Arm is one of my favorite movies. I've interviewed Betsy Sodaro. Like, there's a lot to talk about. But Loot's premiering on Apple TV Plus. I had the chance to watch it before it's out. This is an amazing sitcom. This is an amazing comedy show. I'm so excited for people to see it. One of my favorite things about this, Ron, is, it's an ensemble cast where there's 5 of you that are focused, working for this foundation, everything. You're rooting for every character after episode 2. What do you kind of think about that? Because, did you notice that a lot of these characters had the potential appeal early on when people checked out the show?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that just goes to the great writing, starting with Matt Hubbard and Alan Yang, and they've been involved in so many great projects, whether it's 30 Rock or Parks and Recs or Masters of None. So they knew that they had the writing down. And when I got the audition, I was like, oh, I know I could nail this character, and it seemed like in some ways they had written it a little bit around me. And so what was important to me was if I was going to have a chance to do a little bit more and grow and do some actual acting and things, because I've been, doing a lot of classes and trying to work on my skills. And once I started reading some of the scripts and some of the plot lines that I had to go through with myself or with Joe Kim Booster's character, Nicholas,
Yep.
I was like, this is going to be hard for me. This is going to be this is the first time where I'm almost in every scene in a few episodes, and it's a great challenge. And I just love that they believed that I could do it. And I think I proved them right.
Well, it's funny because that was one of my questions I had but you brought it up. I mean, the Howard Nicholas dynamic and friendship, in my opinion, is my favorite thing about the show, to be honest with you. Because it's so amazing. And, it's such a genuine kind of development and everything. Can you talk a little bit more about that, working with Joel on that and everything? You both have comedy backgrounds. What was that dynamic like?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually kind of like a blessing in disguise, because our relationship in real life almost kind of is really similar to that of the show, where we've been in each other's circles, we've been around each other, but we didn't really work with each other and didn't know each other. And I think we both were perhaps a little, because you don't know, some stand-ups are just straight up lazy. They don't want to act, they don't want to come in and know their lines and stuff. And working with Joel right away was the opposite. I could tell that, I didn't know it beforehand, but that he was a trained actor. He had gone to school for acting. And so I was like, oh, I actually have someone here that I can really play and have fun and enjoy this with. And we just kind of had this fun, weird chemistry, because we're extremely, we have similar to a couple of reviews I read where they talked about how different the characters are, but they kind of, have this bond. And we talked about that on set one day, where we're he has a completely different background from me, being adopted and just living his completely different, and I will, I don't think he would get mad if I said, but more substance filled life than I have. And then for a guy who had a kid when I was 20 and just been focused on having my family and stuff, but we had a lot of respect for each other, and we both love video games. And that was the first time we met. We actually bonded over this game called the Untitled Goose Game. And I was like, oh man, the fact that you even know that game means that we're probably going to be friends. And I just think he's such a massive talent, and it's just a real pleasure to work with him.
I just can't wait for people to see it. First 3 episodes going to be premiering on Apple TV Plus June 24th. Take the people you got to work with on this show aside. You know what I mean? You mentioned Alan and Matt. They worked on amazing things. Maya Rudolph, like the cast, you know what I mean? Nat Faxon. Take that aside, right? Because there's going to be pressure and overwhelming emotions regardless because of the amazing people you got to work with. The workplace sitcom, though, because they've been so popular and some of them really hit hard and they're watching all the time. Is there pressure to work on a workplace sitcom knowing the track record of them, Ron?
I wouldn't say necessarily just the actual format of the workplace sitcom, more as, and I talked about this with Joel. I think we both had pressure to want to be on a good project that people really enjoy, and that people reviewed well, and we understood the track record of these Apple shows, you know, where they don't make a lot of them and they tend to do very well, at least critically. And for Joel and I, we had both been on these shows where, like, you know, I don't read a lot of reviews, but sometimes, and even my friends, less reviews, more my friends, who they'd be like, you know, I wouldn't have watched that if you weren't in it, you know, and to be in something where I'm like, I'd watch this show if I was in it or not, and to see it and see the quality of it, every shot looks beautiful, all the jokes are well written, and it just they let us just improvise and have a lot of fun together, and it really is a dream job. And it was, and I would say more like, you know, because you know my podcast, it was something more I tried to manifest because I was sitting around trying to make my own show, and it got passed, and I knew the script was good. I knew the script of my show was good. I knew we had a solid foundation. We had a solid team behind it, and I was like, there's just something missing. There's something that I need there's probably another step in my career I need before I'm ready for my own show. I was like, I need something like my own Parks and Rec. I need my own 30 Rock that I'm in. And then I get this call to come and audition for this show, and it's from the people who made 30 Rocks and Parks and Rec, and I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I need.
It's crazy how things are like that. You know, you mentioned the podcast. Actually, I do have one last loot question before we go on to the podcast and stuff very quickly. I mean, I love the show. Like, it really is. It's exciting when you just watch a show. You know, we're press. We do a lot of interviews, right? And it's exciting when you're like, I want to talk about this a lot. You know what I mean? I want to, because, you know, it doesn't happen all the time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of, like, during the pandemic, we've been doing a lot of self-reflection and a lot of soul searching, right? Molly, played by Maya Rudolph, and a lot of other characters like Howard as well. They're doing a lot of soul searching as well. I'm curious if you kind of thought about that or made that connection, knowing that we've been doing a lot of things during the pandemic, and then there's the show that you're doing where a lot of people are doing soul searching and everything. Have you thought about that at all? And we're reading the script and everything.
Well, I think just knowing, and I can't speak for their overall things. I can speak a little bit more about the character choices of Howard.
For sure.
But what I do know is that when you have a show that is trapped in this wealth, you know, that you don't want it to be a celebration of the wealth. I see it already now. There's people who you can tell haven't seen the show, where they're like, oh, why would I watch this show that glorifies billionaires? And then it's like, well, if you saw 1 minute of it, it's the exact opposite.
Watch it, because exactly what you just said right now. It's true. It is. Exact opposite.
It's a beautiful, scathing criticism of what money, but without passion, can do to a person.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it you had to have in order to make the other stuff, all the glossy stuff, be palatable. And as far as the soul searching, I think, for Maya's character, for everything, there's a lot of like woman empowerment that I really enjoy. And I've been a big fan of female-led comedies. I mean, I Love Lucy is my favorite show of all time. And for Howard's character, when they originally read the character, he was like, they had him listed as like 30. And I was like, Oh, that's fine. I can play 30. That's not a problem. You probably have to dye my beard up a little bit. But I go, there's more to this character if he's my age, if he's 38, if he's me without my comedy career, if he's the guy who just likes like video games, anime, all the stuff. He's good at making other people feel good, but he doesn't know what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and that was just like basically Howard is like me 5 years ago before I found my wife,
Yep.
before I got my kid and stuff, and where I was like, oh, I'm having fun, I'm doing things, I'm getting buying shoes, but I don't really know what I want. And I think that was a big part of sitting at home in the pandemic and being able to think more about my life and the things I've gone through that I wanted to add directly to that character, just to make sure. Because I just thought he was more fun. I was like, if he's getting ready to be 40, there's more of a desperation to his. I don't. I don't want to be here, but I don't know where I want to be.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't wait for people to see, you do such a great job as Howard on the show. Um, your podcast is excellent. And I'm just curious because Popternative, I started it as a podcast in 2015. It was straight up like interviews and like discussions about pop culture and sports and pro wrestling, right? Now Popternative is more of like, it's still technically a podcast because people can listen to all the interviews on Spotify and everything, but it's more like a media outlet and everything. I'm just curious, when you started the main kind of concept of your podcast, and it's just you having incredible storytelling discussions with your guests, like some of the stories you tell are amazing to each other and everything. There's a lot of life lessons there. Did you have that mindset that it was a saturated market and there's a lot of like opinion based podcasts out there and everything? Because that's I went into it knowing like there's a lot of podcasts right now. There's a lot of things, a lot of people are doing the same thing, just talking about their favorite TV shows, their favorite movies. What was your mindset specifically with your podcast?
Well, my at the getting better, I just knew it was similar to when I started stand up,
Yeah.
basically, where I was like, well, if it's something I want to do, I want to be committed to it. I
Yep.
want to be something I do want to do every week. I understand that it might not make me any money at all. And so I need to do something I actually want to do. And that was a big part of it,
Yeah.
of just being like, what do I care about? What do I want to talk about? And like you said, there's knowing that there is this saturation of like, especially in comedy, just these like comedy podcasts and these podcasts that go through the day, like that are basically late night shows.
Yeah, pretty
And
much. Yeah.
and so I was just like, well, how about I just do what I do at home? I've been doing these vision board parties at every New Year's Eve at my house. It's been New Year's Eve tradition where we would just come up with our goals, come up with things we wanted to do, and and whether it's career wise or health wise or even just things we wanted to buy, just coming up with goals for the year and hanging out because I don't drink and I don't, and I was just looking for safe, fun things to do in New Year's. Just bring my people to me. We can hang out. So they could drink if they want, and we
Mm-hmm.
could have a good time. And it was really a great experience. And we just kept doing it. And the affirmations that I do, these like just these positive, I guess, positive monologues are
Yeah.
just ways that I've been waking up my son when to get him ready for school. Just be like, hey, every morning I'd be like, hey, you're smart, you're strong, you're brave, you're loved. Like, get out there, have a great day today. And I was like, well, and in fact, I thought about what if I do that, and it was embarrassing to me. And I
Yeah.
and that had been a rule that I had years ago. Where it was like, if it embarrasses me, I should lean into that because that's who I really am. And so that's pretty much why I wanted to do the podcast that way.
You also focus like some of your interviews as well, like that when when you're chatting to your friends in the industry as well. You talk about little things. You talk about like kind of, acts of kindness and kind of being there for people as well, which I find is really good as well because that's what I look at with content as well. I kind of want content that stands out and will make me feel good. You know what I mean? When I watch Loot, the Howard Nicholas friendship, it makes me feel good. You know what I mean? In a world right now where there's a lot of things that don't make us feel good. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think I mean, there's a time for be like biting and mean but that's usually when we're doing really better as a society. You need that escape and you need that reminder. I mean, when I was young, and sometimes in some places where I didn't want to be, there were shows that I'd watch, whether it was these sitcoms like I Love Lucy or Martin or
Yep.
Living Single or Grace Under Fire or Roseanne or what have you, but they would always take me to this nicer, more like warm place where I could be with these characters who I wanted to root for and who, in some cases, I like family. And that's like, that's what I think that is the pressure of the workplace comedy is like,
Yeah.
You want to be funny, you want to have these great jokes and stuff. And I think one of the things I love about the show so much is that all of the voices of these characters are unique. There isn't like I've been on shows where there's like, okay, that's a funny joke, but let's move it. This person doesn't have a joke, so let's give it to them.
Yeah.
And like that wouldn't work in this show because our viewpoints are so set. A joke from Howard's perspective wouldn't work for Nicholas, and it wouldn't work for Arthur.
No.
It wouldn't work for those characters, and that's one of the things I really like about the show is the ability to like just be focused and narrow in your comedy, and I think that just comes from them trusting our voices, and that's what you want in the workplace comedy at the end of the day is people you want to be around.
Absolutely. No, that's very well said. Ron, thank you so much for coming on Pop Turner. It was so great chatting with you.
It's a pleasure, Petey. I love talking with people who actually watch the things and you could tell that they're knowledgeable about things because sometimes it's a 50-50. So thank you for being on that positive side of it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So some plugs quickly. So first 3 episodes of Loot premiering on Apple TV Plus June 24th. So they have to check that out. Your podcast is available wherever they listen or watch podcasts, right?
Yeah, Getting Better is available everywhere. And then I'm on a tour right now. You can just go to ronfunches.com. If you want to come see me do stand-up, I might be in your city.
Absolutely. Twitter, Instagram, you're on those as well. And then very quickly, check out Golden Arm. It's a film that Ron Funches is in with Bette Sodera, Mary Holland. I love that movie so much. I have to plug it because it's just from the wrestling perspective. It's about an arm wrestling tournament, but it's very pro wrestling feel centric. So they gotta check that movie out.
I can tell you 100%, Pete, just to top on that to end that to get ready for that, because I was doing so much announcing, I reached out to my friend Justin Roberts, who's the announcer for AEW.
Yes.
And that's where I based a lot of that character was all, clearly just, pro wrestling announcers and pro wrestling promoters.
Oh, absolutely. I've saw your interview with my friend Chris Van Fleet as well, and it's just all the wrestling talk there was amazing. You did that like last year, I believe, which was awesome. But yeah, seriously, this has been Popturnative, youtube.com/Popturnative for previous episodes. Loot is premiering on Apple TV Plus June 24th. Until next time, this is Ron and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popturnative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popturnative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popturnative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.